Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
Almost.
1 year after the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, President Obama campaigned for re-election on the demise of Al-Qaeda.
There is a reason why Al-Qaeda is on its heels and has been decimated. There's a reason why Osama bin Laden and his lieutenants are not in a position to be able to execute plots against the United States.
Not only were we able to drive Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan, but slowly and systematically we have been able to decimate the ranks of Al-Qaeda. I said we'd refocus on the terrorists who actually attacked us on 9/11, and we have. And today, a new tower rises above the New York skyline, and Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat.
But a man with access to the documents recovered from bin Laden's compound says the president's public claims about Al-Qaeda's strength did not match up with the intelligence gleaned from the items that were seized. Here's Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, the former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency.
What I know the intelligence said was not necessarily what we hear.
It was diametrically opposed, wasn't it?
I would say, from my perspective, it was just the opposite. You can't sit here and say, that Al-Qaeda was defeated when we're still looking at elements of Al-Qaeda that are conducting operations.
A year after the UBL raid, in a speech May 1st, 2012, President Obama said, quote, "The goal that I set to defeat Al-Qaeda and deny it a chance to rebuild is now within our reach." It wasn't, though.
And this is March of 2015.
And we're still not within the reach.
I wouldn't say we are. I can't sit here and tell you that we are.
Stephen Hayes co-wrote a column exposing the discrepancy and appeared on Special Report last night.
At precisely the time the administration is making that case most strenuously for the final 6 months of the 2012 presidential election, you have now a senior U.S. intelligence official, well-respected, well-regarded, in Mike Flynn, running the DIA, saying, in effect, we were telling them the opposite. We were saying that Al-Qaeda had doubled its capacity. We were saying that Al-Qaeda was growing. The threat was exploding, and the president went out and said exactly the opposite.
All right, Greg, you're not the most conspiracy-minded person I know, so let me go to you first.
Who told you that?
What do you think's going on here?
This is not President Obama's fault. Bin Laden had kept all of his emails on a personal account, which is totally illegal, but there was not a single one found on alqaeda.gov. But okay.
It was on the Clinton server.
There are two key points here. You cannot close Gitmo if terrorism is still widespread. And that was a primary goal of President Obama, was to close Gitmo. But you can't close Gitmo if you need to Gitmo terrorists. So why the intentional error? The intentional error is because of this perverse priority. If you're too focused on terrorism, you can't focus on terra firma. You can't focus on the earth. This is about focusing everything on climate change, on global warming, because that limits the influence of America. Whereas the war on terror expands American influence, climate change marginalizes the United States. And that's why it's attractive to basically to the left. War on terror is good for America because we're actually fighting evil. But war on climate change, we're fighting ourselves, and that's preferable. That's my conspiracy.
Okay, I like it.
Okay, thank you.
Very interesting.
Can I go home now?
Not yet. We're going to just stick around because we've got some more things I want to ask you about. I'm going to go to Kimberly next.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the documents were so sensitive that the administration wanted to prevent additional leaks so that they made them much more closely held, and that's why maybe some other people in government that thought they should have access to them didn't have access? I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes and be generous.
Well, now that you've done that, we're going to lift you right out delicately of their shoes and put you back on Earth, because I don't trust anything they do, and I think the evidence was quite conclusive from that raid, the bits of information that we've been able to get out and from my intelligence sources, that showed that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda had worldwide reach, that it was spreading an influence, and that is very bad, like Greg said, for their business. They do not want to say that the United States needs to get more involved internationally, or that we are at war with terror. These are terms and fundamentals that they disdain. They would rather focus on domestic issues here at home, on climate change, and retreat America back, like roll back in the reel so that we are not out there having influence in the world theater.
One thing that surprised me in this documents, Jesse, it was that Al-Qaeda's relationship with Iran is discussed in these documents, and I think that is, given what's happening now in Iraq, and also with the fact that the president is going towards trying to get a deal with Iran. I thought that struck me as the most troubling aspect of this.
That struck me too. I'm not surprised the president lied. I mean, the fact checker called him Liar of the Year the other year on Obamacare. I'm not surprised he lied about Al-Qaeda. Remember, this is the beginning of the election a couple of years ago. Remember, he said GM is alive and bin Laden's dead. It turns out Detroit's bankrupt and ISIS is creating a caliphate in the Middle East. But you're right. The documents were troubling in one specific reason here. The president prohibited the intel guys from even reading and analyzing bin Laden's files. That's a dereliction of duty. I mean, he's not just banning books, he's incinerating them. And what the documents said was they're trying to collaborate with Iranians. Yeah. They're trying to exploit the Arab Spring. And they're on the same side as the Muslim Brotherhood, the same Muslim Brotherhood that was invited to the White House. So, and all of a sudden the president's now saying, oh, you know, this has never been a safer world. Then Clapper comes out and says it's the most lethal year in terrorism of all time, 2014. So I think the new bumper sticker for the left should be Obama lied and people died.
Well, I don't know. That's just what
good. I like it.
Juan, you earlier this week you had a chance to be at the White House, and I know that you can't say anything from that meeting, but if you could just give us a sense, are they divorced from reality? Do they recognize the contradiction that continues to pop up, that they did run him on re-election saying that terrorism is calming down around the world, things are better in the Middle East, and we actually have arguably worse problems now than a few years ago. Do they recognize that?
I don't think that we have worse problems now, except with regard to Al-Qaeda. And that's, I think, the flaw in the ointment here. I mean, you know, you guys can bring up climate change and all this stuff, but look, the reality is bin Laden was killed by this president.
I know, but
and that's what he ran on. He killed bin Laden. I think the American people responded. And then the second thing is that not only that, but look, Al-Qaeda has not been able to organize another attack against the United States. Core Al-Qaeda was not even able to retaliate after bin Laden's death. So what we have here is a situation where people can say, well, we have more spread of terrorism. Well, that's true. That's absolutely right, Dana. So if that's your point, that we have more of these groups like ISIS, for example, right now.
Which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda.
In the Arabian Peninsula. Right. You can say that, oh, this terrorist thought process has metastasized. It's around the world. That's not good. But that's different than saying, oh, no, Al-Qaeda is bigger than ever. That's just not true.
Yeah, but the documents actually contradict what you're saying. That's the problem, that Al-Qaeda has even far-reaching influence now than it did before. I mean, you've got Africa, India, Asia, throughout many parts of the Middle East. I mean, listen, just go into the terrorist, thesaurus. Who cares if you call it Al-Qaeda, or you call it ISIS? Nevertheless, we are at war with terror. And I think it's just very, very naive from a national security perspective to say, well, this offshoot of, AQ is not in business anymore.
If you want to have a political argument, fine. But if you're talking about terrorism and you're talking about the people who attacked us on 9/11 and getting them and cutting off their head, which is what we did when we killed bin Laden, that, to me, is an accomplishment and not to be diminished.
Well, it's the war on terror. It's not the war on core Al-Qaeda.
Well, it was at that time when they attacked us on 9/11. We were after the guys that plotted and executed what was a devastating attack.
Yes, we did, and now they've spread all over the world. They're in Yemen, they're in Libya, they're in Iraq, and Syria, and
the ideology. I mean, but you could.
So don't go around saying, we got the top guy. You can get the top guy, but then thousands of others pop up.
Okay, well, look, our goal was to get bin Laden. We did it.
Our goal was to defeat terrorism, and he hasn't. Terrorism spread.
But I'll tell you this. In a way, you're both correct. You're correct. President Obama's administration got bin Laden. That should have been enough. He shouldn't have been greedy.
Right.
He should have just said, "Oh, we got." He just said, "We got everybody." This is the critique of Al-Qaeda. The rise of Al-Qaeda is a mirror of the critique on the war on Iraq. A reverse, in the sense that the White House overestimated the threat with Iraq, and now they underestimate the threat of terror. It's a reverse, and it explains a key ideological difference between the right and the left. The right goes after threats, external threats, to perhaps a fault, whereas the left underestimates threats to a fault.
Purposely.
But when the chips are down, who do you want in charge? Everybody becomes a conservative when the threat occurs. The moment the bomb goes off, there's not a liberal in sight, there's not a left-winger in sight, everybody becomes a conservative. My argument is to just be a conservative all the damn time.
Right. They're like bandwagon
Just be that way. It's better to overestimate a terror threat than it is to deny it. And that's what President Obama basically solved a leak in a bedroom ceiling by closing the door and pretending it wasn't there. But it was there, and it grew, and the leak spread.
Yeah, but that's what makes it even more reckless and dangerous. And like you say, a dereliction of duty, because if you know that and you act in conscious disregard of a known risk, and we're going to say it's okay. It's not a matter of political ideology. I mean, that is an administration not doing its job and putting the rest of us in America and in the world, for that matter, at risk.
I see.
That's the problem with it.
Let me think. Who is leading the global war on terror at this moment? Is it Germany? Oh, no. Is it France? Oh, no. Is it President... Well, let me finish. Is it President Obama and the United States of America and our good soldiers?
Well, right now it's King Abdullah and Netanyahu, actually.
Yeah, Juan, why is Obama's coalition against terror like half the size of Bush's, number one?
I think that...
Number two, he hasn't rallied the world. He's not even arming the rebels.
Are you kidding me?
Okay?
Are you kidding me? Look,
Juan, this guy has not had the stomach for this fight.
It's so true. He doesn't even have like a baby rattle from Bye Bye Baby.
We are leading this fight. We've invested money.
You can say you're leading, just like you said you just decimated Al-Qaeda. Doesn't make it true.
Juan drank the Kool-Aid at the White House
again. I'm not drinking any Kool-Aid, but I am saying, you know, Greg's point, and let's seriously consider this for a second. Greg makes the point that the right always says, let's go after these guys before they do anything, and the left is too quick to diminish it. But I would say that the American people at this moment are a little bit tired of anybody saying, let's get back in war. Why don't we go about nation building?
That's a straw man, Juan. Please. You don't have to go to World War III just if you want to decimate ISIS.
Well, you want to put boots on the ground, Mr. Waters?
I want to have some guys targeting.
I think Waters' world's going to get pretty muddy.
Waters' world's going to wet.
And here's my question is to the media, you know, this is how you could build a career on trying to break this story. And so Steve Hayes and Tom Jocelyn of Weekly Standard have been on top of this. They break the story.
Amazing.
You would think that other journalists might say, maybe we should try to go and find out what is happening with the documents. Let's just ask the question, because the administration has been pretty silent
and not
responded.
They don't want to say, and this picks up on your point, they don't want to say that Bush and Cheney were right about the threats that face us here in America and in the Western world.
You always see this trend. Whenever the White House wants to do something, they look at the area and announce that it's broken. So healthcare is broken, immigration is broken, the justice system is broken.
Great point.
Likewise, to justify inaction, they say there's not a problem there. And in this case, because I really do believe it had a lot to do with closing Gitmo, they wanted to say that the problem of terrorism was fixed. It wasn't broken. Like terrorism somehow was so 2009 or 2008. He wants to fix America. He doesn't want to fix the world. Because we're the bad guys.
It's like they had written his goodbye speech. And they were trying to figure out a way to make all of those things true, because they want to be able to say that he fundamentally changed America and our foreign policy. All right, I'm going to get the last word. Ahead, did anyone at the White House ever receive an email from Hillary Clinton's private account while she was Secretary of State? Valerie Jarrett answers that question next.